What you are listening to now is a special Fever Report with John Robertson and Michelle Garmon. The topic, of course, being the premature end to Caitlin Clark's season and a sad, sad Fever base. We will not have a Fever Report this weekend as scheduled because of college football and the NFL, but we will return with our Fever coverage next week.
You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengels.
Welcome, Fever fans, to the Central Indiana Sports Report. I am joined by our Fever guy, John Robertson, and Tipton Tribune and Elwood Call Leader sports editor Michelle Garmon. And, John, it's official.
It is official. Caitlin Clark has announced she is out for the season. While I'm sad because I want to see Caitlin Clark play, I think, as I said a couple of weeks ago, this is probably the best choice for the team long-term and probably best for her health long-term. Knowing we were going to be struggling to get her back in rhythm and knowing that we would have had a hard matchup in the playoffs regardless, I think shutting it down and not risking a much larger injury is the better choice. You hate to see it because people want to see her play. Everybody wants to see her play. But I think it's the right move. What do you guys think?
I agree with you, John. It might be different if the Fever hadn't been decimated by injuries outside of Caitlin's injury. But, you nailed it on the head, I thought, the last podcast we did when you said that even if she came back, she wasn't going to make a big difference in the playoffs because it's just her just getting one back with the way the roster's been decimated. It's not good. And all it would have done was put a target on her back and risk another injury. So it's the right move.
I had a feeling this was coming a couple weeks ago. I don't remember how long it was that I vocalized it, but I really had a feeling that even before the All-Star game when she was in tears after the re-injury, I think she knew then that it was potentially season ending.
Well, that's my question, John. Did they know this all along?
I've questioned it myself. I don't want to say that I haven't thought that. I do think Caitlin was putting in the work trying to get back. I don't think she was willing to admit that it was over. Did the front office know? Part of me thinks maybe, but tickets weren't selling that well anyway.
It's a different world as far as that goes now than it used to be with tickets because of the secondary market.
They really was hoping that before all the other injuries happened that they would have Caitlin back maybe for the last week of the regular season and into the playoffs. I really believe that with her putting in work, and she had some little setbacks, but I'm going to guess that the front office started, especially after Sophie's injury, probably really started questioning whether or not they should really try to push Caitlin back. But part of that is up to her too. And she is a highly competitive person. It's one of the reasons she's so fiery on the basketball court. I don't think she's ever had a significant injury like this.
I'm going to say I think that's a much more likely take. I want to use Occam's razor and say it's a much more likely take that the front office really thought they could bring her back, but as they started to have injuries pile up, they were like, is it worth it to push it? They were willing to push it if the playoff race, if they were in a good position. They was willing to push it if the roster looked good around her. But with all of the injuries, she would have an impact. She would make the team better, but not better enough to make a championship run. So why waste your time and risk injury when you could just go for it next year?
I mean, if you're 100%, you remember Michael Jordan famously in 1985 came back for the last few games to get the Bulls into the playoffs despite the organization not wanting that. He went against their orders, as we've seen. And they did minutes restrict him, and they won anyway. They beat the Pacers in the last game to sneak in the playoffs.
About winning because they wanted the better lottery pick.
But not Michael Jordan said, well, what we want to do is get in the playoffs, and that's more important than any draft pick. So there's an argument to be made that if she's 100%, she should be playing.
I don't think she is 100%. I think maybe 80 to 85.
If she's not, though, she should not be playing at all. It's not even a question. If she's not 100%, there's no reason for her to be playing.
I truly like. I've said this several times, and I love Caitlin, and I want to see her playing. She makes the game so much more exciting. Her being on the floor changes everything for the Fever. Even if it's not her doing the scoring, she requires so much attention. It opens up everybody else. But I just don't think it's worth it with the situation they're in. It's too much risk for too little reward.
It makes you wonder too how much of what happened with Halliburton played a little bit into that. I mean, they're not headed to the NBA or WNBA finals with a depleted roster and Caitlin back.
It is the same
But the fact that
organization.
even
There is some kind of shell shock.
And I think your comparison to Jordan's very apropos. I thought that earlier too. He missed his whole second season basically. Caitlin's missing her whole second season. She's going to come back and do great things next year. As fans, we are heartbroken. We are devastated that this is the news. But I think we all kind of saw it coming. I think that
Yeah,
if you look at the 5 stages of grief, I'm already in acceptance. I've been in acceptance for a minute.
exactly. That and the fact that there's more than a decade left of Caitlin Clark ahead of us makes it not
If she
heartbroken,
doesn't
is
have a
probably the
baby.
wrong word. Well, yes. Even then, maybe. It might just be
Yeah, well,
interrupted.
that's one of those things that I think makes women's sports kind of like fascinating. I guess is the word because
Yeah.
these these women have a limited time to have children if they want to have children, so that is going to interrupt their career at some point. So like you have to plan slightly differently around it.
Yes. And we would
But
all be,
that's a whole other topic for a different day.
and of course, we'd all be even happier for her having a child than winning a championship. So it's a whole different level of
Well, of
life.
course, if that makes yeah
Even as sports fans,
yeah
we
for sure.
understand
But I'm
that.
just saying like
We would congratulate her and
absolutely. I'm not
suffer the losses.
I do think it's an interesting twist on sports because we don't have to talk about that stuff with men's sports. They become dads, but they're not incapacitated for seasons for becoming a dad.
that is true. That is what makes women's sports a little bit intriguing because you don't
All
know.
right, guys.
Somebody ends
So
up pregnant.
after the loss on Wednesday, that makes Friday's game even bigger to make the playoffs. John, Michelle, does this news of Caitlin Clark being out dampen your spirits toward this playoff run?
I don't think it dampens my spirits as far as I think it's still a great opportunity for a lot of players that are on our core to get practice in playoff situations. But I don't have my expectations for them going far in the playoffs. Like I'm kind of like, well, let's just see what happens and move on. I'm going to the game.
I make the last week, which is a week that's going to be for a playoff spot, any less thrilling to you because the final result isn't going to be what we were hoping coming into the year.
I think yes, but I also kind of think that my brain has already been at that point. I think I've been there for a couple of weeks.
I'm still thrilled about them making the playoffs because I think Caitlin said it or kind of stated it perfectly in her tweet that what this team, the adversity, and I know she's proud of her teammates, and I think it's making the playoffs is a big thing for them for all they have went through this season. Are they going to make a playoff run? I really don't believe that it's going to happen. If they're the 8 seed and they have to play the Lynx in the first round, no, I'm not saying they'll get swept because they might be able to sneak one out. But I'm excited and I'm kind of thrilled for them to make a playoff run. And I'm like John, for a while, especially as those injuries piled up, my expectations decreased of what I just want them to make the playoffs, and I do think it's very important for that to happen again. Let's face it, Leah Boston, this is her third season in the league. They made it last year. They make it this year. Maybe the same result, but just getting there with what they've had to go through this season, I think, is huge. And I think it's huge going into next season if they can do it.
True Fever fans will celebrate the positives that came out of this awful season. We came into the season with such high expectations, and it just fell apart multiple times. I just like celebrate Kelsey Mitchell, who had an amazing season. Celebrate Aaliyah Boston, who had a really great season. Celebrate Lexi Hall for being one of the toughest players we've ever seen. And then, be ready to go hard next season and just hopefully luck falls our way.
Exactly. That's what you have to hope for. I mean, you you have to. really kind of in your mind believe that surely fate can't be so cruel to the Fever again next year to for them to suffer through all the adversity they have this year.
That's assuming we have a WNBA season next year. We'll
True.
save that talk for a different day because there's still a possibility that the WNBA doesn't even exist next year. Horribly so.
It's going to be interesting though because although some of their jealousy towards Caitlin, they have to and wonder a little bit, does this affect our marketing collateral? Because they want to talk about increased attendance and numbers, but we all saw if Caitlin can't play, or when she can't play.
That's assuming that that the players are reasonable enough to actually admit that it's not them. And I think that's a discussion for a different day because I think some of them truly believe that they're the draw. And I'm not even just talking about Angel Reese.
Oh, no, I know.
I do think the CBA stuff, we can talk about that another day. And I guess my final point I want to leave on is if you're a Fever fan, and if you're a casual, the Caitlin Clark's injury for the rest of the season is going to be the big story, and that's going to be the thing everybody talks about. And it is a big story. I don't want to take away from it. But please don't diminish how hard Kelsey Mitchell worked this season and how well Aaliyah Boston played and how tough. Like I just want people to remember those as just as important because that really should be almost a big story in the grand scheme of things.
Oh, hey, John, I do want to point out one other thing. That the Fever literally have been bitten by a bad luck because you saw where one of their coaches blew out his Achilles during practice. So, I mean, it's just been...
DeWanna Bonner put a curse on the team when she left, and that's just the end of the story. That's all there is to it.
Sure seems that way. I think it's as good an explanation as anything else, John. Yep. Hey, I've come around to you. All they need is one more win, and they're going to be in because the Sparks' final 4 games, Atlanta, Dallas, Phoenix, Las Vegas, they're losing at least 2 of those.
I fully expect them to win against the Sky. I think they're going to pull off this win against the Sky because Angel Reese is out due to...
We all agree on that one. Suspension. They might need one more, though.
Yeah. So. Okay, well, I think they're going to get the one, and I think that's going to hopefully just be enough. We'll see what happens.
Big win Sunday against Washington.
Yeah, that one matters. I think if they can win that one. I really do think they can win that one.
The Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media, and I love Susie.